Okay. So can everyone hear me? It looks okay, sounds okay. Thumbs up. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna share my so we have two parts. There's a little bit of a talk. I think the agenda was around 45 minutes. That's very long. I'm sorry if I talk that long. So I like to break it up, smaller areas, especially on the computer. And then there was 30 minutes kind of working with a very intro project. And we'll see how that goes, Sir Ezekiel. Just let me know if we can kind of change things and adapt things as we need. But if it is good to go, I will share my screen and I will start into this talk. Is that okay? Zeke, good? Okay. And after the first part, there is a 5-minute video. I do want to, so I will stop sharing and reshare it with the computer sound. I emailed the video to Sir Zeke if there is internet trouble. Hopefully it will be okay. Also, I am going to go a little fast. I know everyone's English is not master's level. So I can slow down, just let me know. And Sir Zeke, you can message me too, to let me know too if you want, if there's anything. But I'll try to share my screen now. Let's see if this works. All right. I know that animations can sometimes cause lag online, especially since we are on the other side of the world. Can you see it? Does it look okay? And in the chat or with a thumbs up, you can let me know. Good. I should
Everyone,
be sharing the screen now.
can you see his screen, Sir Sean's screen? Can you please respond in the chat, yes or no, if you can see his screen? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so what this is it is a mini unit about open source animation. And this is kind of some of the intro projects that we did in 2023. If you know the the computer teacher from the other lab, we have some here, and some of the animation. So I'll kind of show that off. Just to start, this is kind of what Sir Zeke said. So we have our introductions, which we have already done. There is a little talk, which is the intro to open source and animation. So kind of reflections on JRI and open source tools, a video for what is open source, and then some student examples and the overview of some of the projects that we'll start next week with the mini unit. That I'll give videos. Sir Dem did these, but it was 2 years ago. So Sir Dem, I don't know if you'll remember it. It might be a good brush up too. And then there's maybe 30 minutes we were thinking for the animation workshop, and then closing remarks and Q&A if you have any questions for me. Okay. So on the first part, this is intro to open source and animation and kind of reflections on JRI and open source tools. So while this is an animation talk, and this is our small animation unit, the main idea for me and what I am really excited about is open source. And so I'll also be talking about that. And I put a note here because you are 11th and 12th grade, right? So very advanced students. But this is intro to animation. I know that in the JRI lab, they use Adobe Flash, and there are videos for that. But I know you may be advanced students. This is not this is not advanced students. It is for kind of students who are starting this for the first time. But it is very good knowledge, I think, for if you love animation and you are an advanced animator, to get your friends or family. If you have a cousin who lives far away, for free, you can get started and learn all the basics and learn the intermediate. And so this is a free way to get families and friends into it. Or if you have never animated before, this should be a kind of quick and fun way with a few projects to start to learn the process. This was just about me. This doesn't matter so much, but this was just kind of what I've been doing. I've been teaching almost for 15 years now, but in my schools, I came from a kind of a poorer family in the city. and I always teach at schools where the income of the families and students, we're not rich students, right? The schools do not have much money. I think this is probably true of most schools in the world, 75-80% of schools. But, the schools that get talked about are the top 5% of schools that have the most money and do all these fancy things. And that has always bothered me. And that's a little bit about what open source is about. I also, not just animation, but I also teach coding and 3D and web design and game design. We do JavaScript, but I teach 6th grade to 12th grade. So I teach at all those levels at JRI. My expertise, I've taught the most at 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then I teach a little bit for 11th grade and 12th grade. But so that, and these are just some photos of the trip. Both, I don't know if anyone was at that movie night. Man, that was a lot of fun. I don't think I've had so many students in one room ever at the same time. Anyway, so this will make sense soon, but I wanted to show this, and this is for Sir Dem. I call this and other people to be aware of, the spectrum of access, right? So these are all popular computer programs that are used in classrooms around the world for computer creativity, for media. But I moved them from the left, which says open source web apps and open source native apps, ad-supported free web apps, freemium apps. So there's Kahoot is an example of freemium app. There's single pay web apps. And then there is subscription, which is you pay forever. And I think that on the left side, this is the most access to the least access, right? And it's good if you have lots of money and you can afford to pay forever. That's nice, but a lot of people don't have that, right? Most people don't have that. So it is on the left side, the open source. So things that are free and they do not need advertising, they're free forever. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's actually more going down on the bottom here on my slide. There's like 10. But the difference is web apps are online. So they are open source programs that we'll use today, like Wix. This one we'll show off today here. But native apps are ones you have to download. So they are free and you can make with them, but you need a computer that you can download them and work with. Sometimes they take up more resources. One of the things that is really nice about open source web apps is they can work on since the processing is not on the computer does not need to be very tough. And so I just wanted to say, experiences and learning I had as an educator the last 15 years. And I want to show just a little bit about last year in Washington, D.C. I got to present on what I was doing at JRI and talking about the importance of open source web app. I think Sir Ezekiel, he's wrote a recommendation letter. If I am accepted, I applied to a teacher program, I will go to Congress and I will advise Congress people about education for 1 year if I get accepted. So that's a cool idea. But this is what I like to talk about is open source. So this is a joke. It says, please come with me to another presentation. This is what I showed off in DC. And so this is a story. I'll simplify it. It was 10 years ago. I got a grant and I got 30 copies of Photoshop in my school. And I was very excited. But what happened at my school, and this is something that was very strange to me, is that the students they weren't as interested when we started using Photoshop instead of the free web tools I was using. Because graphic design, it turned into a school only thing. When I was using the free tools that they could access anywhere, they could go home and they could make flyers for their parents. They can make animations. They can show their friends and family. It wasn't school only. And I think that was very important for me. This is something that I think is very true for any classroom, is that engagement, to be excited, is not about access only in the classroom. It's about being able to use it in your life when you want. And I think that is So this is the hardware and bandwidth was pretty good in the computer lab. The internet was actually very strong. But the one thing was I saw we had Macromedia Flash 8. And that was something, I almost look like Santa Claus now, but Macromedia Flash 8 came out when I was in college. And so this was just a timeline, right? Is that, it was in 2005 was when Adobe bought Flash. And then Adobe retired support. And so for many years. So this is a program that's very old. And it's okay because we were trying to do the best we can with what we have. But this was in the specific case of Flash, there was an open source project from a university, Carnegie Mellon, a very advanced technology university, one of the best in the world. And they released the WIC editor in 2016 as a free version of Flash that you could kind of use in different ways. And so this is an example of it's free, it works on your phone, it runs better than the 2008 version of Flash, and you can download it if you don't have the internet. You can download a free version. So this is an example of, there was an open source project that basically improved Flash. It took the old Flash and made a free version that could be used by everyone. And this is from a different presentation, but I said this talk wasn't just to promote WIC, because there are hundreds of free open source programs. And for teachers everywhere around the world, it's not the unknown knowns of teacher awareness. It's like teachers cannot teach if they don't know about it. And I think one of the major issues in worldwide education is that it's so hard to get information out globally. So that was one of my main ideas. I'm going to stop for a second, and I'm going to try to play a video. Has anyone heard of open source before? The video might be a little advanced, but open source. Has anyone ever seen of it? Okay, no, okay. So I'll try to play a video. The sound might not work, so let me know. Here, and Sir Zeke, let me know. So I'll click share sound, and I'll try this next one. Here, this is actually a link to the slideshow. You don't need to open it now, but later on if you wanted to. So there's the slideshow for everyone if you want it. There are articles you could read more, but this was a easy 5-minute video about what open source is. Hopefully it will sound okay. Sir Zeke, if it doesn't play well, let me know and we'll stop and maybe you could play it there.
If you're watching this video, you probably use some kind of software on a day-to-day basis, and it's pretty likely that this software was made by a company. Sometimes it will be a company made up of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, and sometimes it will be 5 friends in a house in Palo Alto. What you may not be aware of is that there's another type of software created and maintained by users, the people who needed the tool in the first place and used their skills to build it. This is called open source software, and it can be tweaked, added to, or improved by anyone. That means that it's built on a collaborative approach to problem solving. If you see something wrong, you don't have to just report an issue and hope someone fixes it. You can go straight in and do it yourself. It's a simple idea, and it's not really that new. In the 50s and 60s, all software was shipped with a copy of its own code so that users could fix problems on their own. However, most software companies don't do that anymore. Many of them guard their code pretty aggressively. But the idea has stuck around, and in many ways, it's been instrumental to the development of modern computing. You may even be familiar with some of the resulting software without realizing it's open source. Browsers, media players, operating systems, it's everywhere. And that's before we even look at the architecture of the internet itself, most of which runs on open source platforms. So far, that all sounds great. But what about security? If anyone can poke around in the code and see how it works, presumably that makes it pretty insecure. Well, actually, this transparency is exactly what makes most open source software much more secure than other kinds. Instead of blindly trusting that the software you're using is secure, you can actually check that it is, and do something about it if it isn't. Now, with so many people involved, things could get complicated financially. Say I've contributed 2 lines of code to the next huge, world-changing open source project. How am I going to make sure I get my cut of the license fee? Well, I won't. because there is no license fee. With some notable exceptions, open source software is free to use, which means that all of the people contributing are doing so without direct financial reward. And while it might seem crazy working on something for free, this is where the strength of open source lies. Yes, it's secure. Yes, it's free. And yes, both of those things are awesome. But they're also kind of beside the point, because the real value in open source software comes from the community surrounding it, usually made up of talented and passionate people contributing for any number of reasons. It could be simply to develop their own skills, in pursuit of a hobby, or in support of a cause they really care about. But these types of contributions are only half the story. Many large organizations depend on open source, and a huge amount of open source contribution is sponsored in some way. Companies hire developers to use and contribute to open source software because it accelerates their work. These companies then contribute back to the wider community and encourage others to do so as well, because they know that a rising tide raises all boats. For most businesses trying to solve a problem, there comes a time when you have to make a call to build your own software or to buy a package that fits your needs. This can be a really tough decision to make, because it means weighing up the expense of building and maintaining your own software against buying a pre-made solution that could be cheaper but might not exactly fit your requirements. Open source offers a third option, combining the best of both worlds. You have a piece of software ready to go, but you can also shape it to ensure your goals are achieved. We've talked a lot here about the benefits of open source and what makes it so powerful. In order to really drive that home, I'd like to give you a real-world example. In the late 1950s, the three-point seatbelt design was invented by Niels Bohlin, an engineer working for Volvo in Sweden. The company quickly patented the design, but what Volvo did next was somewhat unexpected. They opened up the patent and made it free to use. This meant that anyone who wanted to utilize the three-point seatbelt could do so at no charge. It was adopted by other manufacturers, and over the course of the next 20 years, it became law in many countries that all road users must wear the seatbelt while driving. That basic design hasn't changed in the 60 years since its invention, and to date, it's estimated to have saved somewhere in the region of 1 million lives. In many ways, this is open source thinking in its purest form, a great idea by one person, which is shared freely in order to improve things for everyone. Open source brings together talented minds, allowing everyone to make a contribution to ensure we see our values in action.
Okay.
If you want, you probably use some kind of software on it.
1 second. Okay. Version of screen. Oh, okay. Here, I'll just spotlight myself real quick. So that was very complicated, maybe. Sir Zeke can send out the video later too, so you could watch and hear it better. I also know that some students' English is not university level. But the main idea is that there is software that is made that is everyone working together. It is not one owner, but it is open source. Everyone can use it. So the programs that we used when I was at JRI, WIC and Pixel, were two open source animation programs. So that will, so as an open source animation, that means it will not disappear. You can download it forever. It gets updated slower than a normal program. Sometimes universities support open source programs. Now, open source is a big thing for computer programming, but I just want to talk about using open source programs. So one thing I wanted to mention, oh, you sent the link to the Facebook? Good. I should have done that. Yeah, so in this, these are all links. These are active links. So if you click on it, it will take you to the open source program. Like this one right here. This is Godot, which is an open source game engine. And there are popular video games that are selling for Xbox and PlayStation that were made with Godot. It's different. Maybe it is not as fancy as some of the other game engines that charge money, but it is free and supported by the community. Let's see. Blender is a 3D making program. Very advanced. Sometimes to do advanced 3D, you need a good computer, but Blender is a free and open source 3D program. There's GIMP, which is a free Photoshop-like program for visual editing. So free and open source image editor. Now, this is different because you have to download it. That doesn't work for some students because maybe a computer is too old. But these are, if you combine open source with a website, this is, I think, where we get, it's very easy to access and to share. You can send it to friends, you can work together. And that is what I was going to show today. So these are two programs. This is for pixel art. They're not too complicated. They can be simple. And this is Wick, which is like Adobe Flash, which the animation program used at JRI. One thing I want to say is there are very good free visual editors like Photopea. We use this at JRI to make our to edit some facial GIFs, some face GIFs, face animations. But there are open source programs, but I have not found an open source program that is quite as good as the ad supported. But Photopea is a very good free Photoshop, but it does have ads on it. These two are similar, but not quite as good. Okay, so I want to show off some student examples and overview of the project. Here, I'll let them actually, here, let me go over here. I just want to jump back to the start because I think I actually missed the one. 1 second, let's see. Here. So this was the Padlet from JRI from a few years ago, or from 2 years ago. So these are just some of the very basic intro to animation, intro to pixel art, intro to animation. Some of them are fun. Some people were doing this for the first time. So, and these are some of the projects. So kind of sometimes very basic. I like someone made a pea shooter with multiple layers. So these are, simple projects if this is your first time doing animation, but we'll just go through them piece by piece, and hopefully you will learn a little more by a little more. These are some of the other ones. Here, I will share this in the chat as well. So this was the Padlet that we had used, just a little under 2 years ago in some of the introduction projects. We're building animation collages or do the intro. Okay, I'll show off some other, some of them are pretty funny, very basic. Some things are just, we start just by drawing or moving objects on the screen, doing a fade. Some of them are pretty entertaining, but you can get creative with it as we go. Okay, so here, let me go back down. Okay, so this was some examples too. So while we can start very small, I teach animation. I also do coding and game design. So these are some examples of just very, very basic. So these are people for the first time working on pixel art animation. But this program, so they make a walking animation, but then we put it in a looping background. So then we create animations that we have a background that will loop. You can start to make it more and more advanced. When you start small, you get big. Because we only have 5 or 6 projects, we are just going to focus on the very easy things. But these are some examples as our animation starts to become more and more advanced, and you build those skills, you can start to make more and more interesting and advanced animations. When you're making advanced animations, you could then start to get into game design if you wanted to, or website design, where you can apply your animations. You can create jump animations, movement animations. You can make pieces of levels. This is the class that I teach, is game design and coding and animation. When you are learning coding, I know this is not a coding class, but I think animation is one of the best ways to start to learn coding if you are interested in it. When I teach coding, and I've been teaching coding for 15 years, from 6th grade to 12th grade, the 3 types of projects that are the most popular are animation, audio and interaction, and game making. So for teaching animation, sometimes it was just making basic digital art. Sometimes it is taking your physical art you draw, and you can add it to the computer. This is a lot here, so I will not do too much, but it is, to learn digital animation, there's kind of 7 steps. they get more complex. You have to kind of spend time learning the basic interface. You can experiment with basic animations. You can learn animation principles. So these number 3 is like if you have ever done drawing before or made a physical animation where you draw frame by frame. And then you can create traditional frame by frame digitally. And that's what we'll do in a moment when I finish up with this in 10 minutes or so. So it is creating traditional frame by frame animation where you draw each frame and it goes to the next and it creates your animation. But to do more advanced, you can start to bring in you can start to combine animation. And then you can also use the programs, like you can use either coding in Wick or Scratch to programmatically change things. So you have your animation, but you're instructing the computer to join in as well. Okay. This is an example of programmatic generation. So I'll click this here. So this is a kind of a simple program where students made a basic kind of photo collage, and we're just rotating it, and we're adding a special effect. So this is just some very basic animation. I often do this with my intro class, but you can start to create pretty interesting looking things as you slowly go up. So for this one, we physically kind of in Photoshop, we make 5 or 6 levels, and then we just have it rotate. There, you can do more advanced ones. This was an example. If I click here, here, I'll just show this as an example. So this is the same project, but it is 5 layers. But by using computer programming, I can have it generate as many as I want. This one, it will just generate infinite layers, and it creates a very crazy effect. I'm sure that it's lagging, right? Is it lagging? It's hard to see. Here, this was let me take this. I'm not sure if it will load, but if you so this is just an example of there's frame by frame animation and we will do that today, but you can also get into coding animation where you're starting to use pretty advanced computer ideas to create the animation instead. Anyway, we can also one program that we'll do is also just a GIF collage, so you can find other animated pieces and we can put them together, start to build and save animations. This is a pretty simple project, unlike the other ones. They'll do some other ones where we have the walking sprite, so we'll make a basic walking sprite. And then we'll do some basic frame by frame animation using a technique called tweening. And we can do this one. This will probably be the final of the 5 intro projects we do. But we do have last year, I changed it a little bit where we used a generative AI. So you could make AI images, tell the computer to make an image, and then we can save multiple AI images, and you can try to create a short animation, maybe 30 seconds or 60 seconds if you wanted to. So I've kind of done this before with students. Just as a quick question, has anyone used generative AI to make an image? Told the computer just to make images and then edit it? In the chat, anyone? So we can do that just as an example. Okay, so I see one person. Cool. Yeah, so I have a teacher Canva license. I think we can add everyone in at JRI to that, so you can use the important thing is when you generate with AI for animation, it needs to have a transparent background. So it needs to be an invisible background, not the whole screen. But I think we should be able to add you to that. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, and it was just so just making images with AI is fun, but you're kind of like, oh, that's cute, cool, whatever. But maybe if you start to make AI images and then learn to animate with different pieces, you can start to see how it could be more and more useful as you scale up your skill. Yeah, I'll share again. This was a joke, an example. Very basic, but you get the idea. When you do a simple one, you can then make it more and more complicated. But these were generated with AI. It looks like Monsters Inc., but if you pause it, it actually is like her ears are melting. The eyes are too big. It's pretty crazy. So I do always like to have, when I have students kind of make with generative AI, because sometimes it's very, right? If you actually look at that, that is kind of scary, right? I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see what you all make. All right, let's see here. All right, so these are the kind of basics of animation that we go through. I have other stuff, but this is more coding stuff. So I was going to get through this. Sir Zeke, when were we going to end this one? It was the first part is at 11 more minutes. Is that true? Okay. Yeah, so maybe I'll just talk a little bit more about what I teach is while we'll go over frame by frame animation and a little more traditional animation, like I said, it is a good way to start to learn coding, because as you learn to make the graphics, to make the animations, you can also, and in Wick, the program we'll use, you can add code and you can also start to manipulate things. You can also add sound effects. So I just wanted to show off a couple examples of where I go with this, right? Is, there's some very simple animations. With my youngest students, my 6th graders, 7th graders, we just start with coding a button animation. And so this is a project, it's very simple. It's just a button. And I have students make their own button and they have a sound effect. But so it's just, you click it, the code is very, very simple. You can do this in JavaScript or in Hawk. But then there's, I have students start to take this and try to modify it. What could you do with 2 switches? What could you do with 10 switches? Could you make a puzzle game with the switch? And then there's even other ones. Let's see. Let me click up here real quick. Let's see, roll. There are different students. I have had so many students make this. This is very silly. Sir Zeke, if you wanted to open that up just real quick. And if you press the switch. So it's just kind of a joke. Many students, there's the song. It's very stupid, but as students start to learn animation, you like there are very different ways to build with it, to make with it. Hopefully, Sir Zeke opened up. He clicked the button, and then you can also add animation, things like that. So very basic projects, but there's different things where let's see here. So this was a soundboard example I would do with students. And sometimes you notice it's just the on hover mouse effect. So that effect you can do in HTML and CSS when you make websites, but that is also a form of animation. So I just wanted to, there are some other projects where you can kind of compare the code. Now that I think, coding is very much like animation because you can create it. Sometimes there's very simple projects. So this is a Python this is a JavaScript project. But I also have understood in Python and in JavaScript where it is an audio button and you kind of click the buttons and it plays sounds. So that is, instead of animating visually, it's audio interaction. So the interaction is audio instead of visual, right? So we'll focus on the visual. And then all that kind of turns into game design. I was just saying, I've been doing YouTube videos for a very long time. I think my first YouTube videos for my students was in 2014, like almost 10 years ago. For game design, I've redone the same video like 5 times. So I started as my baby, and then there's Mr. Higgins before I came to JRI, and now there's me now, right? So it is kind of funny, as you do kind of more and more of this, you get to different things. But the main idea is, with open source, anyone can start to access this stuff. If you have an internet connection and an okay computer. You do not need a good computer for the open source web apps, which I think is very exciting. So that no matter where you are in the entire world, you can start to learn this stuff. I do want to say that the other key message too is, and I have started seeing this, is with AI, they are starting to do generative language adoption for AI. So that means a website in one language, the AI can automatically translate it to any different language. It's still new, but within 5 years or so, pretty much any application made in any language can be viewed in any other language. So that means that the internet, as we go forward, will become translingual. Any country, any island, at least, that is somewhat popular, you'll be able to adapt into that. And the generative AI should actually be able to slowly acquire the less known languages as well, all around the world. So it's very exciting that we are starting to approach a time where on the internet, language will start to matter less and less. And there is going to be technologies where even if you don't know the language, you can still speak to people and hear in your native language, and vice versa. So that'll probably come first visually with websites, but there's also, with AI, they have language translation in your own voice in multiple languages. So it's a very wonderful and interesting time to be alive with some of that. It's very exciting within my lifetime that, anyone can go to any country and hear and then what people are saying around them. All right. And especially with the websites as well for students. Okay. So that was pretty much it. As far as the talk, just the idea of open source, which means free, that everyone is contributing to it, that we're all working together to create programs so our kids can use them, so your cousins or brothers or younger brothers and sisters will have free access to be able to use these tools. And that was pretty much it. So right here, I'll add this link again to the, this is the Padlet. I'm not sure for today what we make. People could probably add it to this one. I will make a new Padlet that will not have the previous year's students and some of their animations. So I will make a Padlet for everyone else as well for just this class for our projects. But this is just a way, that link right there is the previous projects. So we can use that for posting some of what we make today. And I think, Sir Zeke, if it's okay, maybe we'll try to do the tutorial on Wick. Is that okay?
Yeah. So this is the workshop part.
Right. Sorry, I talk so much. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah. Okay.
All right. No, I know as students, like sometimes you listen, you'll be like, okay, Sir Shawn. Okay. Very boring. Like, let's make some stuff. Okay. So I am going to share a link right now to Wick, and we'll try to get everyone on there. Okay. So I'll go to the Wick editor. And hopefully this will work at the same time. I believe Sir Dem 2 years ago, it seemed like it was working pretty good. We'll see how it is. So this is the link, and maybe I'll share it out to the Facebook group as well. I'll try to see if people can log in and get signed up. And in the chat, you could maybe put okay or a thumbs up or on the camera. Or Sir Zeke, maybe if you are in the room, right, too, Sir Dem? When people mostly have it up, let me know. Very good. So in the chat, just let me know when people are ready. I have some examples of what some previous students have made. But you can get very complicated with this project. You can do a lot, but it's also just, if you're just starting, sometimes it is good to be very simple. All right, and maybe I'll give it another minute or so until I know people are ready. Looks like most people are there. Looks good. Okay, I see a couple thumbs up. I feel like everybody's good. Okay. All right, Sir Dem, I got the thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, so what we are going to do today is we'll go over the basics of Wick and create an animation of your name. I know some people might have a very long name, right? Probably if your name is too long, it'll be more challenging. So it's up to you. I think maybe 5 or 6 letters is usually the best. I will share some examples so you can see. So I think I see everyone's screen. We're good for right now. You do not need to show them. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen real quick to show some examples, and then I will walk you through the process, okay? Okay. So these are some examples of students who have made this. So the very basic version is that we'll just try to write your name. So my name is Sir Shawn. So this is the most basic version of the project, right? So I'll just make an animation and save a GIF of our name. But you can do a lot more than that. Here, I'll share the Padlet link here. And so you can open this up yourself and see it as well. But so other things that you can do is we can change the color of the text. So it will be a rainbow. You can make a custom background, right? So this is the same project, but it's up, but she changed the color every frame. There's another project here. So she used her, this is Masha. She used her gamer tag, I think, to create her animation. And then she added a thank you for watching. So this is much more advanced. You don't need to try to do this if you don't want to. Here's another one, another student, Kantaro. So he had like a cloud run by, different snow, lightning, rain, and he had his name moving around. This one is a very simple one, but it is more stylized too. So it's Bryce K. His last name was K. But notice the text is kind of moving or all around. All right. So I want to go over the basics now. So those are some examples. So this is very similar to Adobe Flash. But the main thing down here, there's the first thing that you want to do is there's this red right here. There's the red. This is called your scrub. And you can click on that with your mouse and move it around. And that will take you between your frames. So notice this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are your frames. Okay, I will go slow. To make an animation, each frame will be a different drawing. I would say to make the basic for a hand animation, usually it is 12 frames per second. Does anyone know the term FPS in video games? Does anyone know FPS? Okay, I see some heads going. That is for usually gamers, right? Or Lance, did you raise your hand?
Upper.
Yeah. In FPS is usually the frames per second. It is how fast your screen or a game is animating, right? It's called the refresh rate or the animation rate. So FPS, we could change it, but we will keep the default. Oh, yes. So we click on the gear. We can see that the FPS, so this is the settings up here. This is our resolution, but this is all our FPS by default is 12. That's good, 12. So for 3 seconds, to make a 3-second animation, how many frames do we need?
36 po.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, but if we move forward, we can get up to 36 for a 3-second name animation. So I'll start to show us maybe how to draw first. Okay. So notice we have our scrub and we move your scrub to frame 1. So it's at the start. And we'll use the brush tool. It is B. I'll type that in the chat. 3-second animation at 12 FPS. 36 frames. So if you press B, and you hover your mouse on the tools, this is the toolbar up here on the top. So we'll use the brush tool first. You can type B on the keyboard. And you should get a little black dot. And you should be able to start to kind of draw around, right? I am just going to be an example. So please watch closely. So once you have made a mark on a frame, it changes color. So now there's nothing's here, nothing's here. I go back to frame 1. I have my drawing. You can also go back to cursor or C and click it and move it around, shrink it or grow it for each frame. We'll get into more of this later. Okay, I'll delete that. So if I click brush on frame 1, I can also change the color. To change the color, you click the black dot. And you could pick different colors. By default, there is basic colors, yellow. So you can draw in yellow, right? If you want to undo, it is Control Z, or here's the undo up here. You can click to undo. You can also change the size of your brush if you want to make your brush bigger. Okay, so here is size, color, and you can, if you want more colors, you can click this little box here. It is best to start with black, I think. And I'll say maybe 15 for my brush size. I think that's pretty good. You can change it to be what you want. You can also press cursor and select and delete everything. Okay. So to start, we are on frame 1. And we have our brush. People good? I see Lance, I see you. Good, you undid. Good. Okay. So here's where we'll start to build something. We are going to do the first letter of your name to get a sense of where your letter should be. Maybe we'll delete this in a moment, but let's just draw your whole name, try to fit it up right. Doesn't matter. We'll delete it in a moment. So get a sense of where your letters would be for your final animation. So just draw your name. Black is fine for now. It takes time to get used to a drawing. Because you want your whole name to fit. If you wanted to, you could press the C or cursor, and you can click on the letters and move them around if you wanted to space it out better. Okay. Haya looks awesome. Now notice you have the white space extra on the side. Or Batista. So maybe, do you want to make it bigger? It's up to you. It's okay if it's just to one side. Right? Okay. Once you have written your whole name, we'll give it one more minute. And then we'll start on the Andrew. Nice. Now just think, but is this where you want your animation to be? Because you'll control your letters soon. All right, when you're finished, we'll delete it again. So we'll keep deleting it. So just delete it again. You can press the cursor, select, and you can select the screen and press delete. I just want you to get a sense of where it would be. Okay, so Lance, you want to delete it when you're finished, kind of getting an idea. And now we're ready to begin the animation process. All right, when all the screens are empty, we'll start again. So I'd say just leave it empty real quick because we're going to turn something on that is going to help us. So we want to make sure your screen is empty. And what I'm going to do is you're going to take your scrub and go out to number 10. So you want to put your red screen number 10 and you want your screen empty. Okay. Now, Sir Dem, if you can hear me, one thing you want to be careful of is that the frames are empty. Some students might be drawing on separate frames. So if you look at Lance's, I think you can see that he has 2 frames that are drawn on. So you just want to be careful first. So we want empty, nothing on any of the frames. If it's there, you can just delete it for now. So I'll give it 30 seconds and then we'll start on the animation. So you want to make sure everything's gone. Put your scrub on 10. Andrew, it looks like you might have drawn that out. You might want to reload. You can always reload. Yeah, actually, maybe that's best for right now. Here, everyone just do a reload. That'll start us over. Because I just wanted to kind of show everything off. And it says autosave, delete. So when we are fresh, we're going to start. So you put your scrub on number 10. And here's the next step. When it's on number 10, there's nothing there. We're going to turn on onion skinning. So it is right, if you see right here, it is the O, but it is this button right here. You want to click it, and you will get this red leaf here. So you click onion skinning, or O, and then what you want to do is click on the left, the black, and drag it out to 2. Perfect, Lance. I see it working. We'll give it a second. And then once it's on 10, so you drag it back 9, and you can go back to frame 1, and we are ready to start animating with onion skinning. Onion skinning will let us see a ghost of the frame behind. So when we are on frame 2, we will see frame 1. It lets us draw in order. Okay, so move your scrub back to frame 1. And we are ready to start our drawing. Okay. So Dem, if you can hear me, I think I will wait for people to get ready. So they just have the onion skinning on. It is back 9, and we are ready to go. I will start the demonstration in a moment. This is where we want to start. I see a thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so we're good to go. Okay, so Dem, if you let people pause and kind of see what I'm doing here, this is the kind of important part, okay? All right, so now what we do is go to our brush. And what we want to do is for each letter of your name, we are going to try to build it in 3 pieces. We'll move to the next frame and we'll add more. So to start, we're just going to do the first letter of your name. So watch what I do here. So what I'm going to do is on my first frame, I'm going to start my S, but I'm only going to do that. Now wait, don't do it yourself yet. Then what I'm going to do is press the plus sign on frame 2, and it will become a ghost. I'm going to repeat this. So redraw over it, draw a little more. Click number 3 and redraw again. Click number 4, redraw again. Click number 5, redraw again. Click number 6, redraw again. And then when you are actually, let's go to 8. Click 7, redraw again. 8, redraw again. and then you can press the play button, and you should see one letter animating. So start on frame 1, just the first part of the letter, and just do one letter for right now for the first 8 frames. Redraw it 8 times. Just a piece of the letter. So it should probably take 4 or 5 frames to draw the whole letter, but you want to redraw from the top. And the next frame, frame 3, frame 4, frame 5. Looks great. All right, and that'll just be the 8 frames. When you have finished 8 frames, press play and see if your letter animates properly. Gabrielle? I don't know if it's Gabriella or Gabrielle. That's looking good with the G. Sometimes you could go slower. So if you go slow and break the letter into 8 pieces, it may animate better. Because you don't want to remember, you're drawing it piece by piece, but you're redrawing it. So it should kind of move around a little bit because it's hard to do perfectly. All right, looking good, people. I see it's looking good, looking good. All right, so once you've got one letter working, one thing I want to show you is you can take your scrub and you can drag it back and forth too to see the animation. Okay. So you can manually check your animation, and you can turn onion skinning off. So if you hit O, you just see each individual frame, not the onion skinning. We do want onion skinning on, though, when we go to our next letter. Because when we go to our next letter, you want to redo your first letter and then continue with the next. So it'll get longer and longer each frame, up to 36. So I'm just going to continue. I'm going to do it with you. It's animation has a little bit of repetition. So I'm going to do one part of the H. Next one, I redo the whole S every time. Do a little more. And I'm just going to keep on going. There's a little bit of repetition to it, but that's okay. And then you do your next frame and keep on going. And then you redo both the 2 letters, and then you start your 3rd letter. So it just kind of gets more and more each time. And so this next part, it should probably take 10, 15 minutes to finish, maybe about 5 letters to get to 32 frames. I'm going to let my cat in. He's meowing. So one moment. All right, I'm just going to keep on working with you. So his next frame, keep on going. Once you are finished, you can always just do another one of it with that before starting the other one. It's up to you. The more frames to complete a letter, the smoother the animation. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, or you could ask them. Sir Dem is there helping. You can ask Sir Dem and Sir Dem can ask me. Remember, you can change the color as well. But we want to go to 36 because that will be 3 seconds. You can also make your letters go crazy if you want. You can make them get bigger or smaller. You do not need to trace exactly if you don't want to. Sometimes I have students, they have a pencil or a stylus on their phone and they hate doing it by mouse. Like I don't know how anyone can draw with a mouse. It is challenging. It's true. You can use a stylus on Wick if you have a tablet or phone that supports it. Although phones, the screens are very small, so it is challenging sometimes. So I have finished my name and I'm at 29 frames. So I'm going to start. I could make my name go up. I could make my name go down. I could make my name get smaller. I'm just going to start to make it go up. But you don't have to do that. You can do whatever you want. So each frame, I'm going to have it go slightly up more.
So Sean,
Yes,
this one.
I'm getting an echo. What was the question? So if you're able to take a moment and look at my screen, I'm near the end. But notice I took my onion skin and I moved it just to 1. So it can only see 1 back now. So sometimes you can adjust this. I think 9 is a good place to start. But at the end, if you want to move 1 object, you can kind of see where it's going. Because I think I'm going to have mine where I go off the screen. And when you are finished with all 36, you can press play. I see a lot of work happening. Thank you, everybody. This first project may seem simple, but we'll get there. Gabrielle, she's like, too many letters in my name. Just 3. And just a reminder, so in the chat, I'll put this here. Remember, you can look at what some other students have done to get a sense of things. Some of these students spent a long time working on these animations. But I think, this is the first where you can just, start. So I think we should be able to give it another like 12 minutes or so to wrap up. So don't hurry. Well, once we get to, but you want to aim for around 36. We'll be doing a little more once we're finished. So maybe we'll give it about 10 minutes. Sir Dem, does anyone have any questions? I see some very serious students. They were working so hard on Zoom.
So Sean,
Yes.
they don't have any question. They
Okay,
were
okay.
enjoying it.
All right. Well, maybe I can maybe I'll set it to preview on these names, and I'll maybe run to the restroom and I'll be right back. Okay. As everyone is working hard in the chat, they can type any questions, or if you have any questions, they can. Okay. I'll be back in a few minutes as everyone's working.
Thank you, Sir Sean.
Of course, of course. I'll set it to slideshow here, so it will just go through some student examples. I'll be back in a minute. Thank you for working hard, everybody. I'll stop sharing. I will I'll move on to the next part in a second, but I just want to talk more generally. So, this is just the first step, and I already see many of you starting to get your ideas are like, oh, wait, I can change this. I can do this. And so I was just going to show off two different things before we save. I see some people are getting into the actual drawing too. So here, let me share this. Okay. So when you've kind of got it finished, obviously you can do more if you want. I do want to show off two tools. One, we're going to get into layers later. But one thing I want to show is there's this little tiny button. Might be hard to see, frame size. You can click that. And if you want to, you could make these larger, but probably better to make it smaller. So if you click smaller, you should be able to see all your frames at once. I know some students are on an ultra wide screen, so you might be able to. But and then what I want to do, so you can go smaller, is it's a good idea to double check your animation. To do that, we want to turn off, and I see people doing, oh, that Beatrice, that looks awesome. It almost looks like a banana. Super good. Okay, so if you turn off your onion skinning, you set your frame size to small, and then there is you manually scrub through. So you take your red and you go through frame by frame, and you want to double check. Is there any frames where you missed one? It's very common. So maybe on frame 15 here, I will add this. I'll add like a bit there. Maybe I actually only have this like line here. So if I press play, on frame 15, I have a mistake, right? And you can see it when it's animating. It pops up there. So you turn off your onion skinning, and it's called scrubbing in English. Miss Sardema, I don't know in Tagalog what it is. But so you scrub through, and I see, oh, frame 15, there's the mistake. I can take the cursor. So I click C. I can click it and just delete. Or you can go back in when the onion skinning is off and start to add things, right? maybe at the start, I wanted to just add a little boop, 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 little lines like that. So a little like, I don't know, kind of spark or something like that, right? So you can go back in and add in more if you want. So I just added those lines there. What I could do is each turn, I could just add 3 lines. And this is with onion skinning off because it doesn't matter. Maybe I just want the top of the S to kind of like have a sparkle or something. I already see students doing it, but you could go in and add something like that where it just kind of you could add an effect later. So the rest is normal, but at the start, it's kind of like maybe line shooting. I can also undo that if I don't like it, so I can just click back a lot. And that undoes it. If I click the undo button, I'm like, actually, I don't like that, right? All right. So before we save, I want us to do one thing. So what we want to do is change the background color. Later on, we'll do layers. So we'll have multiple layers. But for right now, you can change the background color very easily if you go up to the top right and you can click background color. So you can switch it to any color you want and click apply. So I'll just maybe change it off white, just get a unique background color. What's up, dogs? How you doing? You could keep it white if you want to, but I just want to make sure you know how to easily change the background color. So I'll just give it a moment and maybe so you could pick a different background color. I see some yellow, I see some green. All right. I will give that a second, Sir Dem. So I'll maybe give 2 minutes to change the background colors. And then we'll go over how to save it and to export as a GIF. And then we'll ask students to turn it in, okay? I'll set up a Padlet so we can turn them in a moment. Okay. All right. Is everyone with me? Can we pause for a moment? I see some save screens coming up. All right. So what I want to do is we want to create a WIC save file, which will let you open it up later and continue your animation or to change it. So what we can do is, so that one's easy. You press the save button and it will save a .wic file, and you want to call it my name animation or whatever you want. And then just put your name. So I would put like Shawn or Sir Shawn. And notice it is a WIC file. This will only open on this website. We can save that. That was very easy. The second thing we want to do, and Sir Dev, if you want to help people, is you want to, next to save is export. You want to click the export button and you want to click on the animation category and export GIF. You want to name it, and you could do JRI, my name animation. then that will save a GIF. And what you can do is, let's see, I think that this should work. In the chat, we'll also send it to the Facebook group. If you click on that, I believe that you guys should have access. You click the plus icon. You might need to log in with a Google. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. And upload, and you can upload your animation and click publish. So Sir Dem, help me make sure that that works. I think I have the settings correct, but I am not sure. So I'll send it to the Facebook group as well. And that way people can post their animations when they're finished. Let's see.
Oh, kasi
Does that link work? I think I set it to public. Let me double check. You can open it? Okay. And you should be able to click the plus and click upload, the first icon, and upload the GIF of your animation. Just a reminder, to create the GIF, you click export, which is next to save, and export GIF. One is a animation save file. You can continue your work. The other is a GIF of what you have now. And okay, so I'll just leave this up on the screen. So as students add their work, we'll see them. Remember, you can change the color. Sorry, my dogs are barking. This is my puppy Bucket. She is 6 months old. She was barking and wanting attention because it was very late. Good puppy. Okay. She is a mix of many dogs, so I guess a mutt. But I think they were kind of fancy dogs, right? So they're smaller. I think one is a poodle. She's like part mini poodle and part Shih Tzu and probably terrier. We're not sure. We might get a test to tell us what she actually is, but it's silly. All right. So hi, I see some of those animations looking good. I see some people got it saved and it's opening up. So in the Zoom chat, there is the link. Let's see. I'll create a bit.ly, so it might be easier to type in too. So it can give you a shortened link that might work. Oh, yeah, it might be hard because people don't want to manually type in that big link. I understand. Just give me one second here. And I think I can come up with a shortened link to create a link. Okay. So here, this is a shortened one. Let's see if that works for you. I think that should work. Oh, I see someone got theirs in. If you type in on the website, bit.ly/JRI-name, that should take you there as well. So it'll be easier to type in here. If you type this in on your computer, it should take you there. That one should be, yeah, that works. So much smaller today. I got Juno. I like that you changed your green, so it wasn't just like my green. Cedric. Looks awesome. Looks great. Here, I'll give it a... Yeah, it's all good, Andrew. I know it's not finished. Totally cool. Andrew, I like that, the stylized animation. I had just seen the show on Netflix called Arcane. And in that, so it's a amazing animated show. Like there's so much high level animation going on, but there's a lot of this technique where it's the scribbly letters that kind of overlay on other people. Because one of the characters is crazy and she looks at people and they have like X's over their eyes and things like that. Dogs play. All right, great. Uh, Lance looks good. I see you're starting to do some other stuff. Totally good. Naomi looks great. Awesome.
Sir Sean, they're doing great.
All right, they're doing good. So it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students. Beatrice looks good. I love the way it falls. It kind of pushes everything over. All right. And I think at 7:45, Zeke wanted to do have a little Q&A and wrap up. So I think we're pretty much finished for now. And so Sir Dem, for the rest of the projects, I need a little more time to make the Padlets. And I wasn't sure what way is best to put them together. We could do Google Classroom, or would it be easier for you if I just have maybe a Google document with a link to the Padlet and the videos?
Yeah, that's better, sir.
Okay. So I'll keep it simple, and I will just, so maybe, and then I'll send it to you this weekend, maybe on Sunday. And then students, whenever you have time, if they could start them next week. Is that okay?
Okay, sir, it's okay.
Okay. And you send me ideas if you want. So I'm thinking that it'll be like the 4 projects we did last year, and then maybe one more.
More, sir, more projects.
Okay, so we'll have some of the video, and I'll try my best. So, but most of them will be very similar to the ones you did before, since those are my intro projects. So Zeke, if you click the bit.ly, you'll see all the in progress. So many are not finished yet.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at them right now.
Oh yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I love
like
the
Haya has a very cool, like the disintegrating, almost like
Yeah.
Marvel, like the snap. The name just disappears into nothing. Troy, very cool. He's starting to get a lot of color. And Louise has the airplane. I dig it. So, and we will get into tweening later, which there will be a lot of movement of other objects. But we can use the computer to create those animations, not just draw them by hand or hand move them frame by frame. But yeah, this looks like a good start. And this is just, a very simple project, but easy to, it just kind of teaches you the basics, get used to it. Crunchy. I don't know. It looks like a banana. I feel like it'll fully morph into a banana later. And then with the paint bucket, we can also do color fills, and we'll talk about some of that in the other projects. I think this is pretty much it, and we're at 7:45 for me. So that may be if we do 10 minutes, if there's any questions, and then we wrap up. Does that sound good, Zeke?
Yeah.
So Zeke, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sir Sean, for taking the time to help us out, to teach us animation, our new batch of ICT students.
Very basic, very basic.
Yeah, the students you've taught before, I think they already graduated.
Yeah.
So this is an entirely new generation. I just want to ask this batch if you have any questions for Sir Shawn, there may be things you want to say before we close the event. And then you'll be working on a few more animation projects in the course of how many weeks, Shawn? Is it a couple of weeks?
So it'll be a week and a half, depending on how fast they go. And that's how I said to Sir Dem, probably I could try to set up a Google Classroom, but the easiest way, well, I'll just have the videos and I'll have the Padlet links and I'll just make a document. I'll give that to Sir Dem this weekend.
Okay.
So he should be good to go next week.
Okay. Anybody
The first
from
two
11
months,
and
yeah.
12 ICT that has questions or maybe just something that you want to say to Sir Shawn while we have him here? Because we're just going to have this Zoom now, and maybe, just maybe, we'll set up a closing Zoom towards the very end of the project. So you'll only meet him on Zoom like this once or maybe another time.
Yeah, it might be smaller, but I would like to definitely pop in at the end. I'll try to, if students have questions too I'll have my email. And then I can also kind of make some comments and suggestions on Padlet when students are turning in their projects.
All right, no questions for Andrew. Lance, Haya, Beatrice, maybe you want to say something? A little thank you.
And it's all good too that we could in maybe 2 weeks, if we do a short one, maybe just 30 minutes or something, but we could kind of I could show off some of my favorite. I take other students' work sometimes if they give me permission. So when I'm showing off to other students, I always love to see when other students' work can inspire more students. It's one of my favorite things about teaching.